Without further ado, I think we've got the slides keyed up, and thank you for joining us at Plasticity today.
Okay, hi everybody. We're going to get started now because we might as well take the moment. But please, feel free to enjoy the food and off we go. I wanted to get started because I want to talk about some big ideas first, if that's all right. And I was born there in 1951 in Japan. And as a baby, I would lie on my back looking at a Japanese roof structure with a single pin through a scarf joint, wondering if anybody pulled that out, the whole thing would come down. And while I was staring at that, we would listen to the farmers come into Tokyo with their ox carts to collect our sewage to take it to the fields. And my mother and the amas would come and sing to us. And they would sing stories about the honey wagons coming to get the night soil to take it to the fields. And you're 3 years old and it's a poop story and you're in heaven and your mother is singing to you. So I want to talk about waging peace because that's why my parents were in Japan. My mother was the first American civilian woman in Japan after the Second World War. My father was a Japanese language officer for General MacArthur. And MacArthur sent 200 young American couples into Japan as the first line of the occupation. There were 200 young American couples without uniforms, with no paperwork, with no weapons, in unmarked jeeps. And they went out and they took baths. This was waging peace fiercely. MacArthur started preparing for this when he knew he had the bomb. So the idea that we would wage peace by design, because design is the first signal of human intention, and that we would wage peace with commerce. And I think this is very important, that we wage peace with commerce because commerce is the engine of change. It is the fastest change agent. And as Jane Jacobs, the urban theorist, pointed out, humans have adopted two syndromes of survival, she calls them, the Guardian and commerce. And commerce and the Guardian are very different. Business is very fast, it's very efficient, it's highly creative. The Guardian is very slow, it's very serious, the state, and it reserves the right to kill. And what she points out is when you get the Guardian and commerce together, you get a monstrous hybrid. You get something that's a problem. Because, see, the Guardian reserves the right to kill. If commerce is killing someone, say, with toxic releases to a river or toxic releases to atmosphere, the Guardian never gave commerce the right to kill, so it regulates. But when did we get the right to pollute? That's a question I want to ask today. When did we get the right to pollute? So let's keep Guardian and commerce separate, because if you get commerce into the Guardian, as we know, you corrupt it. If you get the Guardian into commerce, you slow it down. So I'd like to think about regulations as signals of design failure. Regulation, the state has to step in and say, wait a minute, we never gave you a right to pollute a river. What are you doing? So of course they have to do that. But on the other hand, if we can design things like we have been able to do, where we've designed textile systems where the water coming out of the mills is as clean as Swiss drinking water, well, there's nothing to regulate. So this isn't about reducing your badness, it's about eliminating the concept of doing bad things in the first place. So it's design. Now, I see everything as either an NGO or a G. So most of the people in this room are NGOs. Some of you are for-profit NGOs. But why is it that NGOs get to have missions? How about us for-profit types? We can have missions too. Now, we can give away our protocols and things to not-for-profits, as you heard, like Michael and I did for the Institute. We gifted over all the protocols to the public, but that's because it belongs as a gift in the public domain. So what was then, what is now, and what is next? I want to start with then, because this, I think, is framing our consciousness. This is a poem from the Christian theologian, nun, doctor and poet, Hildegard von Bingen. This is from the 12th century. And she says, glance at the sun, see the moon and the stars, gaze at the beauty of earth's greenings, now think. Well, here we are today, okay? So let's do this. We can glance at the sun. Okay? Fortunately, we can today. See the moon and the stars, gaze at the beauty of earth's greenings. But then we move to Plato. What a delight God gives to humankind. What a delight. This is this discovery of truth through beauty. I come here from the University of Virginia. Jefferson made the dome and the rotunda as Platonic forms, representing the search for truth through the arts and beauty. And then the two colonnades that come around them are Aristotelian, the Lyceum. And they are rational thinking and science and math, metrics versus Plato's values. But we need values and metrics. But why don't we start with our values first? And then we go measure. If we start with our measurements, we can only benchmark. Very important notion. And so look, all nature is at the disposal. Aren't we here to talk about disposal matters? Is at the disposal of humankind. We are to work with it, for without it we cannot survive. This is what morphs into sustainability thinking and the Earth Summit in 1992. For without it we cannot survive. And sustainability, this idea that we could sustain ourselves, just maintain it. How exciting is that? I don't know. I heard people here talking about how excited they were about saving water, in a shower. That's really great. And we got to talk, because I love industrial design and we're getting at it. But let me just point out something really interesting. If you have a solar-powered shower in a constructed wetland, you can stay in that hot water as long as you want to and have a good old time. And all of a sudden, we start to think about, what is ecologism? What would that look like? We know that socialism wasn't good for the environment. The former USSR has now been declared 16% uninhabitable. China announced 2 months ago 16% of its agricultural land has now been declared toxic. So was socialism good for the environment? How about capitalism? Capitalism, we cut down trees, forget the fish. When we think about it, any ism is an extreme, but ecologism would be just as extreme. See, an ecologistic thing to say would be, stop, you should shave your head, Steve, because you're using too much shampoo. If we all shaved our heads, we would reduce our shampoo consumption. Is that our plan? No? So at a certain point, we want to think about what it means to enjoy the world. So when people say, I won this award at the White House in 1996, Presidential Award for Sustainable Development, and as the only individual win it, when President Clinton gave it to me, the press came up and said, oh, Mr. Sustainable, what does it all mean? And I felt like Mr. Natural or something. And I went, what do you mean? I'm not that interested in sustainability. And the reporter said, what? I said, sure. I said, what is your relationship to your spouse? If you say sustainable, I'll say, I'm sorry. It doesn't sound that much fun, actually. So what are we here for? Are we here just to maintain? Are we here to grow? So that's what I want to talk about. If we look at the history of rights, I've come here from Charlottesville, where I've had the privilege of living in a house designed by Jefferson. And when you look at the 1700s, it was the issue of rights coming in, human rights. And then in the 1800s, after Adam Smith, 1776, Wealth of Nations, we have the market economy. So then we have the century of the economy coming. So we have the idea of rights. We have the economy. Think of New York Harbor. We have the Statue of Liberty. We have the World Trade Center, okay? So all of a sudden, these icons of thought come out. And then in 1838, Emerson is asked by Harvard to write an essay on nature and what is natural. And the question is, if human beings are natural, are therefore all things made by humans part of nature? Interesting question. And his response was, nature is all those things that are immutable, that are too big for humans to affect. One of his examples was the oceans. Nature is too big for humans to affect. Oceans, mountains, leaves. We now know we can affect the oceans, of course. We can affect the atmosphere. We can affect the leaves, and we can take down mountains. So what was the century of the 1900s? Well, it was the take, make, waste century. It looks like it was the pollution century in this context. We think about that. So what is that about? So it's a form of entropy. Now, when I was a little child, I got to see Hiroshima, and I don't know why. And I went to Dartmouth, and I was a student, and I wanted to know two things when I got there. I wanted to know why people blew each other off the face of the planet, and I wanted to know how you could make a city disappear in 5 seconds. So the why, I took French détente theory. That was enough to divert me into the arts. And then I went and took physics, and I was looking at the issue of how do you blow up a city in 5 seconds? I mean, it takes so long to build things, and it's so quick to destroy them. So I was worried, why was Einstein afraid, and so on. Has anybody here actually solved E equals mc squared? Would you like to? I'm going to do it for lunch. Why not? All right. So if we look at the idea of entropy, I'm sitting in my dorm room looking at a fire burning, and, here we were in New Hampshire, right? I had some friends who went to Dartmouth here. In those days, trees were weeds, and the fire's burning, and I'm looking at it going, well, there's entropy. And so all this is scattering, never to return, the minerals, the energy, so on. And we just have entropy. Oh no, it's all going to chaos. That's all we've got? Everything's going to chaos? See, for the people in this room, I really want to talk to you about negative entropy. Because otherwise you're just dealing with entropy and you're going, I want to be less entropic. Right? But what if we were something else? What if we were something else? That's what I want to talk about. What if we were not just less entropic in negative sense? What if we were actually negatively entropic? What would that be? So I remember staring at the fire going, I wonder what negative entropy would be. I'm from Asia. Must be negative entropy. So I go to the physics library. I can't find it. I go back to the dorm. I'm freaking out. I can't solve E equals mc squared because my professor said solve that and you'll know why Hiroshima disappeared. And I am totally stuck. And all of a sudden, there it is. It became very clear. You see, let's do the math. Where's the number? It's C. Right? It's the only constant, 186,000 miles per second. For my little brain, that's almost infinity. Okay, big number. Now, if it's not big enough for you, let's square it. Almost infinity squared. Now we're really talking, right? That's a big, big number. So, if m is in any way a positive number, as in one hydrogen atom, then the E is almost infinite. Goodbye, Hiroshima. That is the atom bomb. There it is. What's missing? Fascinating. What's missing? Where's that negative entropy? So if energy is the sun, and there's physics, right? And then the Earth is mass, the M, we have energy income. Oh, get it? Okay. Do we have mass income? Occasional meteorite, right? Little cosmic dust, that's about it. It's not raining phosphate, right? So we have to really be careful with the chemistry. That's why we're all here today. Chemistry really matters. It's really important. It's really valuable. But if we take the chromium out of South Africa and distribute it all over the world as little toxic dumps, that's a problem, okay? Future generations will say, what were you thinking? Taking all that valuable chemistry and distributing it this funny way, okay? But where's the negative entropy? So I went to think about it, and I was staring at the fire, and then it occurred to me. The log is negative entropy, duh. So I started studying Crick and Watson when they discovered DNA, and what does it mean to be a living thing? See, I couldn't find negative entropy in the physics library. I found enthalpy, exergy, and so on, because it's in the biology library. See? It's not in physics. It's life itself. So all of a sudden I remember thinking, this is cool. These receptors that are distributed collect carbon dioxide, out of the atmosphere, aggregated with water and minerals, and they make what? Trees and soil. They make soil. And the model is carbon dioxide from the atmosphere into the soil. That's the game. When you release carbon dioxide to the atmosphere, it's not the game. See? It's not the game. So that's why this is so important and plastics are so important. That's why I put as a title for this, endless resourcefulness. You see, I think plastics can be endlessly resourceful as long as they stay earthbound. Okay? All right? And we're aiming for carbon to the soil. Think that way. All right. So this is an ad by a well-known company, Toyota, and it shows a tree with the statement, our aim, zero emissions. Anybody here do science? Trees emit oxygen. Thank you very much. Bird song, flowers, soil. Come on, zero emissions. You got to be kidding. Our goal is zero. You're going to go tell your kids, I went to work today. I came back to see you. My aim is that we're not even here. And it's better if you're not. Really? See? So I decided if I ever designed a building, it would design buildings like trees. Humans need to be immensely humble. It took us 5,000 years to put wheels on our luggage. Okay? It took us another 20 years to put 4 wheels on our luggage. We're getting there. But, you know, if you look at this, what if we could go beyond this notion of sustainable development, where we looked at the issue in the Club of Rome report, Limits to Growth, they looked at the doubling of lily pads and said, isn't it interesting that on the penultimate day, you still think you have a lily pad? Right? Doesn't that kind of look like plastics accruing in the ocean? Huh. Interesting, isn't it? When you look at Hank Paulson's article Sunday, Republican, climate change, read it. Sunday, it's time. We don't see this stuff coming at us and then we hit the wall. So, the Earth Summit, where I represented the architecture community, was about eco-efficiency, and the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, taken the term from the business councils, coined as eco-efficiency, and said we could reduce our impact, have less impact, less pollution, and make money. And that's all very nice, really excellent, eco-efficiency. But the question becomes, is efficiency a good when you're doing the wrong thing? See, what if you're a criminal and you're efficient? Oops. See? What if you're doing the wrong thing efficiently? Oops. Is transparency good? What if you're a really serious criminal, transparently? Does the transparency make you good? So, the real question is not, am I doing something the right way, but am I doing the right thing? And I asked the fundamental question of all the people here in business. Why would anybody make a product it can't sell? Why would you throw stuff in rivers? Why would we want these things to wander off into the oceans when they might be valuable and so on and so forth? Why would we create a system of commerce? Why would we make liabilities instead of assets? So Peter Drucker pointed out that it's a manager's job to be efficient and do something the right way, but it's the executive's job to be effective and do the right thing. Because if you're doing the wrong thing perfectly, perhaps even using Deming, who was a statistician, Six Sigma technique, you are now perfectly wrong. See? So Deming was a statistician, and a lot of people don't know. He studied the women who went into the war factory, the armaments factories during the Second World War, and the women outperformed the men about 40%, and everything was perfect. Right? And they were non-hierarchical, sat in circles, and didn't accept inspections, didn't have exhortations, and refused quotas, and outperformed the men by 40%. So the men come back, and he goes, hey, you should see what happened. And they go, yeah, we won the war, we're hierarchical, inspection-based, and so on. You're out of here. And off he went to Japan. That's where I picked up on him. And when you see what he did, it's almost unfortunate it was called total quality management. Because they weren't questioning whether they should make armaments. Of course they did. Had to do that. But it should have been called total quantity management. Because it was metrics-based, statistical perfection. It wasn't asking the question, and what are you making? See? So the executives have to make the right thing for the marketplace and so on. So what's next? I work with the Chinese government. We're right now in the circular economy, 12 5-year plan. The next will be sustainable growth. And the one after that is going to be called ecological civilization. How interesting is this? You see, all of a sudden, civilization, that's society, ecological, and the economy all coming back together. Very important. So we're looking at the balance of economy, equity, and ecology, and we're trying to be fabulous. See, these are design tools, right? We're designing to be 100% fabulous economically, socially, and ecologically. So the bottom right corner is, can I make a profit? The next one is, are people earning a living wage? The next one is, are men and women paid the same for the same work? This is respect, nothing to do with ecology or economy. This is slavery. This is sexism, racism. Then the next is equity, ecology. Are you poisoning people in the workplace or in with their products? Next would be ecology, equity. Is it fair to pollute rivers or oceans or atmospheres for future generations? Ecology is following the laws of nature. I can assure you, I'm an architect. I have to follow the law of gravity. It's not just a good idea. It's the law. Okay? So what other laws are there that nature wants to give us? We'll talk about that. And so the next one would be, am I following the laws of nature while I do business? Which is what I really want to talk to you about. And then the next one, would be eco-efficiency down here, the green one. And most people think that lower triangle fractal economy is the whole world, because that's business for social responsibility, and that's eco-efficiency. But it's bigger than that. It's not the triple bottom line. Every time I hear triple bottom line, it's like bottom feeders, managers worrying about leaving a little profit. Come on, get over it. Let's make revenue. Let's have ecological growth. Let's leave behind wetlands instead of less damage. Let's leave behind fairness instead of like less unfairness. See? Let's do positive things, and then we manage them to the bottom line. Don't start with the bottom line. You can't get to the top line from the bottom line. Okay? All right. So most of the reports we see today is everybody going to zero. I'm sorry. That's interesting, you know, zero accidents, another great history, tradition of this. But in this business, your goal is zero? Really? It's better if we're not here. You know the easiest way for a company to have a zero footprint? Go out of business. All right, so it's so fast. It's so easy. Just go away. And that's the message? You got, or I'll say, oh, I'm going to reduce my carbon footprint by 20% by 2020. Well, that's nice. What are you doing? Oh, you're telling me what you don't intend to do. What? This would be like running out of here and getting in the cab and going, quick, I'm not going to the airport. What? You're going to tell me what you don't want to be. Oh, I see. See? Is that it? That's all we got for each other? So we like to talk about efficiency and effectiveness, and that seeing that design is a signal of intention. So let's ask the question, what do we want to grow? Not what do we want to shrink only. And so what do we want to grow? Health, well-being, good environment. So we want to stop growing rivers that look like that on their way to the ocean, right? Even though C.K. Prahalad would point out 20 years ago that the fact that Hindustan Lever and Unilever and Procter & Gamble make things in sachets that are really convenient for people who only have a rupee and don't have a place to store a box of soap, and isn't it nice that we service them with these packets? And there they are. So is that design a good design? Right now, we're hearing from the companies that make these, oh, they're going to come back in and rake them up and burn them for fuel, and then everything will be fine. Well, you've got to rake them, you have to collect them. This is what Ron was talking about. There's a cost to this. There's a cost there. You can see the cost, right? Now, the economics of fuel or plastic and so on are a different set of issues, but we can see what the cost is. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to do the math on that one. This is a non-optimized situation, period, okay? Now, we have an idea for how to design that stuff in a whole new way. It's so exciting. And so I've decided to go into packaging, and I should tell you my first client is Walmart, and I'm redesigning the cereal box. Let's think about a cereal box for a minute. Anybody know how to get into that thing without ripping your cardboard? I can't. I even hurt my cuticles sometimes. Maybe I'm clumsy. And then I open it up, and I have that that high density polyethylene bag in there, and I got that open. I have to attack it with a knife or scissors, or it explodes on me. Maybe I'm just clumsy, but it doesn't seem very elegant in the end. And then when we get to the MRFs, what does that look like, Steve? It looks like a cardboard box, but it's paperboard from magazines. Now we're seeing in Europe that these mineral oils are migrating some of the inks from the magazines through the high-density polyethylene right into the cereal itself, so you're giving, problematic substances for breakfast. Maybe. We don't know. The science is still being done. But the point is this an optimized system? I don't think so. So, save money, live better. So we put what we don't want down below and put what we do want up above. That's what Lewis was pointing out. Now we have a legitimate upward to the right strategy. The world's getting better every time we move around. So this is saying absolutely be less bad. Do not stop doing that, of course. And there are all kinds of transitional strategies, like we heard from Steve, in terms of taking some of these materials, using for energy now, because that's what we can do with them while we get our recovery systems in place or whatever else. But we have to have strategies around that. And so this gives you a chance. I was able to present this at Davos this year to 100 CEOs. We did workshops around this. And I can let you know publicly, I've just been appointed chairman of the first Meta Council of Davos, World Economic Forum. They have 80 global agenda councils, and now they have 6 Meta Councils. One of them is the Meta Council for the Circular Economy, and I will be chairing it. I'm very excited about that. So we now, thank you, we now have the top 1,300 companies, CEOs, in front of us on this issue. Very exciting. Okay, so that's what this is. And the CEOs love getting up and to the right. You know, like there's a goal. Let's go there. So Walmart's going 100% renewably powered. Bang, way out there. Great. And saying it in the current is a great thing to do. See? So we're looking for, we used to have, remember that we had the good, the bad, and the ugly? See, now we have the fabulous, the more good, the less bad, and the ugly. So, you know, nuclear isotopes washing ashore on western coast of the United States from Fukushima. Sorry, it's ugly. I don't know how else to characterize it. Let's not do that anymore. Right? So, 20 years ago I said waste equals food. Now I say everything is food. And we see this as endless resourcefulness of energy, materials, water, and human creativity. That's really important. This is about endless resourcefulness. So we can celebrate our footprints by being here. And as we heard from Lewis, Michael Braungart and I put materials into biological nutrition or technical nutrient cycles. See, and I just want to warn you, be careful with the language, because I've heard some language today that I think is ready for revision. We'll talk about it in 1 second. But when we think of the 5 criteria that Lewis brought up, materials are nutrients, not reduce waste. Treat everything as a nutrient. Okay? We want to reutilize it. And then, so that's why if you take a Coke bottle and you mix it with cotton and you make a pair of blue jeans, it looks like Guardian and Commerce getting together. You just put technology with biology and created a monstrous hybrid. That's nice. We can sing about it. And it's good, though, because we're in a transition and we're thinking this stuff through, right? And look how excited you got about that. Isn't that cool? I mean, this is fun. William's a great guy. And that's a great thing to do. But the exciting part for me is that it opens the door to this dialogue and creativity to talk about what are these things and how are they being used. And it's not just that we're reducing, avoiding, minimizing. We're not. It's not just reduce, reuse, recycle. I liked recover it on the ad on that, Steve. That was good. But we're also looking at redesign, renew, regenerate. See? There's a lot of R's going around here. And so I want to be careful with the language, because a lot of less bad language is end of life. Oh my goodness, these poor little products. They're all dying. Is this alive? Anybody want to talk about the end of life? Hello? Sorry? End of life? Really? No. We call it next use. You don't design for end of life. It's not living. It's next use. See? That's endless resourcefulness. When you design what's next into what's now. And as Lewis pointed out, maybe it's what's next and then what's next. And maybe that might mean it's not a closed loop. An aluminum can, 75% of the aluminum produced by humans since 1850 is still in circulation. Technical nutrition. But aluminum can doesn't have to become an aluminum can to have virtue in its next life as a mineral. Huh? Anyway, it can become a window frame. It could become a piece of furniture. It could become a present for somebody. See, a bicycle, a Tesla, I don't know. It's aluminum, see? So endless reuse, next use. Anyway, think like that. It's fun. And the language is minimize, avoid, reduce. More good languages, next reuse, period, optimize, recycle, regenerate. Fine. And then that changes your design, because you're not just doing minimization. And so the charts are really helpful, and we do that with biological nutrients, technical nutrients. We've designed textile mills where the water coming out is clean enough to drink. Can you imagine this? It's unregulated because there's nothing to regulate. The inspectors come, they test the water. There you go. What a difference. 20% cost reduction. The mulch is no longer hazardous waste. It's mulch for the local garden club. This is a viable textile business in Switzerland. Think about that. And for Warren Buffett, and Shaw Industries, new carpets that are developed using thermoplastic polyolefins and caprolactam, and making carpets that can be shredded and then returned to carpet cycles. You're basically storing all your raw materials on your customers' floors. And every time they want to change their material, change their carpet, you pick up the old stuff, you bring in the new stuff, you take the old stuff back, you use it because it was designed for what's next. Isn't that interesting? Very exciting. And this is how you run an economy. This is how you do capital formation. Right? So we work with Cradle to Cradle at all scales. Michael and I donated the whole protocol to the Institute. And it's been really wonderful to watch them flourish. And they've expanded in California, in Europe. We're about to see them go to China in a big way. So it's very exciting. And the companies are thrilled to have, it in the public domain and publicly available. I still work in architecture because I'm a designer. And I just want to show you this one in the middle. This is a building I'm doing right now in India. It's a motorcycle factory. But what's fun is I took all the structure and put it on the roof, so it's out of my way. There's no ducting. There's no structure in the building. And I do 9 things with each BTU of biogas. I make electricity. We're using the motors from the motorcycles to make electricity. And then we take the waste heat for the paint shop, and then we take the exhaust heat to run absorption chillers 24/7 because it's our power plant. And from that we get water condensing out of the air. It's a desert. And we make 6 million gallons of distilled water at night and during the day. And then we use the 6 million gallons to water the greenhouses, which we're putting on the roof between the structures. So we now have 350 people working on the roof. And then we're growing food with the carbon dioxide from the engines and watering it out of the air. And then inside we have a wall that's 30 feet high and 300 feet long making oxygen. I get to work with NASA. The building on the top left is NASA's space station on Earth that can make 120% of the energy it needs from renewables and purify its own water. A building like a tree, you would want more of them. See, this isn't a LEED building. We're getting 10% solar or something. This is 120% the energy it needs to operate. See, different. And so that oxygen wall alone inside the building will allow us to change the law from 4 air changes per hour, because they worry about air quality, to this perfect system. And that one move alone will pay for the entire mechanical system in 4 months. CapEx. Watch these economics. This isn't reduce your energy consumption by 2%. Right? So Cradle to Cradle was 2002. This last year we published the Upcycle, which is about how to get things better. And I just want to finish with some recycled plastic story. Brad Pitt and I, after Katrina, decided to see if we could help out where the levee broke, which is here. And so we put together a program called Make It Right and worked with 30 architects from around the world to design houses using cradle-to-cradle thinking. And we helped them with all the materials. We took where the levee broke, the worst spot. We had workshops with the local communities, and we gave them all kinds of alternative houses. And I just want to show this because these are like pink tents of cradle-to-cradle material designed for Mecha Shade and Twitchell. It's a polyolefin fabric. And we put them there because Brad had been filming a movie called Benjamin Button. I don't know if anybody saw that. But they used a pink house for the computer graphics to come in later. You couldn't use green screen because they're out in nature. And there are other things that are green. You have to have something that just is unnatural. And so there it was, this pink thing. And he came to dinner and he said, Bill, this pink house was amazing because it's an emptiness that will be filled with stuff in the future. And that's kind of like what we're doing at the Lower Ninth. It's an emptiness to be filled in the future. So we put 150 pink tents there using scaffolding. I think we used every piece of scaffolding in New Orleans. And to show people what we were going to do, what we were going to fill in. And use it as a fundraiser. It was fun. We raised $6 million for those. Anyway, so now we have all these houses there. It's a neighborhood. They're all solar powered. Their mortgages are $400. Their energy bills are administrative charges, $20, $8, whatever. Imagine that. And these mothers especially who come back with their kids from the FEMA trailers in Texas, and their kids want to be singers and they want to be dancers in New Orleans. And they can't sing or dance because they have asthma. And after 4 months in these houses, they can sing and dance again, and mom can afford to send them for lessons. Isn't that why we're here? Or is it better if we tell them your goal is 0? Really? It's better if you're not here. Let's put you in a trailer. Really? That's what we got? So I think these are really big stories. So I think we ought to redesign commerce itself. And I think we ought to move the question of commerce from the one we've done in a world of meanness and limits, because we're worrying about running out of everything, limits to growth. We ought to think about from limits to growth. And what would that mean? Well, it means we move the question from one of meanness and smallness and limits and fear, which is the question of how much can I get for how little I give? Even philanthropists say this. It's hard to imagine. And we move it to a commerce of giving. How much can we give for all that we get? It's a world of abundance and generosity, not a world of meanness and limits. So as we look at these refugee camps here or Haiti, and Bill Clinton asked me if I would work on this. So I started thinking about the plastics industry. Why? Because I need a negative cost of goods. That's why. I want to think about what if we could make a house for the super poor? What if we could make a house for everybody? What if everybody could have a dignified home? What would we make them out of? And that's why I'm here. I'm here because I think plastics are so critical to this agenda. So I put forward this vision. What if we could design a building system that uses locally available materials to make cost-effective components that can be assembled into safe, secure, expandable, and attractive houses by families in a day using simple tools at hand? Let's try it. See? What could we do? So we called it Wonder House, and I got to work with people like Waste Management, who are here, Steve's here, and Larry Black and Tom Carpenter. I get to work with lots of people, and we started studying what's in the dumps and what we could use. And it's really sad to see all these pouches, frankly, that are 7-layer laminates that are very efficient and winning a lot of awards, but we can't recycle them, really. You know, I mean, okay, you could burn them, I guess, but we can't recycle them. And then we see the various components going to the dumps. We see, you know, this kind of hybrid design that we can't even track in the MRFs. We see the Federal Trade Commission stepping in and making us put markings on things that were strangely designed. I mean, this says Forward Stewardship Council on that peeled off looking plastic wrap on the Tetra Pak box that's aluminum on the inside. So I guess it's Forward Stewardship Council inside, never to be released. And then on the outside, we have a Rainforest Alliance sticker to go with Italian plum tomatoes. And then we have BPA free. And then it says, oh, this product has not been genetically modified in small type. And then recyclable only where facilities exist. And I went onto that site to look for them. I'm sorry, I couldn't find them. The map is empty. It says, look at the map. It's empty. And it shows every county in America. And if you want to find out where it exists, you have to go county by county. And every one I clicked, no facility exists. They should just give us a big map, you know, that says where they do exist, you see? Isn't that interesting? So I'd like to, if anybody knows where they are, let me know. So this is the Flexible Packaging Awards 2 years ago. And this is a slide from Waste Management. Not one. Not one. Oops. All right. So we call these things contaminants here in the dumpsters. And, you know, we have a low point of gravity out here. We're in the garbage can, you know. We're looking up going, are you sending us this? Really? So this is what we get in Indonesia. That goes out to the oceans, obviously. So we're looking at these shelters, and what we've decided to do is create what I call Wonder House, which is this evocation, and Mac Root is in the middle. He's the executive director here. And Mike Biddle's been an advisor on this, as has Waste Management and Dow, which is very kind of them. And what we've been looking at is, could we take polymers from the systems and recover them and make housing systems out of recovered polymers so we can get a low cost of goods? So we're working with MIT, and we're developing a system that allows people to build their own homes using polymers, but they can convert them into any local conditions. So if you want, if you're in the Indus Valley and the Indus floods, like they did in Pakistan, you could have a mud house at the end of this. You could have a pitch roof, you can have flat roofs, you can have whatever you want. And the parts are all made from recycled polymers and assembled without the need of tools. And you can have almost any kind of house you want. So as we give the people shelter, we're actually giving them capital formation. They can take it with them if they're going to move somewhere else and actually build a long-term, durable, dignified home with it. So it's not just some temporary skin. But this is what's going on in refugee housing right now and relocation housing. People are getting the minimum. These are in Haiti. They're concrete block. The ceiling's at 7'8". The roofs are metal, which get hot. It's very concerning. And they end up being these barracks that are unidimensional. And so we're looking at even a 6th grade class could take the Wonder House and start to make all kinds of more interesting neighborhoods, you see. Because they can do it themselves, they can organize it, they could build it. So when we look at the current approaches, 3D printing and things like that, and housing materials, we're looking at people printing whole houses, developing modules, and so on. We're looking at the idea of building a building system that people can use. And this is a slide that Ron Godin sent me of New York's trash. But look at these long pink ones here. Those are films, plastic films. And these are the things we can use as products within a system of continuous tension and discontinuous compression. So we're studying that with MIT to look at how to use these materials in amazing ways to make structures that people can then manifest as their own buildings in their own ways, that they can celebrate as culture, celebrate as prosperous families that are building capital formation, that have a fungible asset in these various opportunities for material reuse. And so that we see these materials as endless resourcefulness, with the endless resourcefulness of creativity of humans brought to it too. So I'll finish with these pictures because Evan Byer's here and Sam, are you here? You guys, they're over there. They're going to talk to you, I hope, soon. Next? Is that it? Yeah. And this is research we're doing together with them of how to insulate these walls in ways that will surprise and delight you. Let me just leave it at that. I would call this the surprise and delight insulation rather than shock and awe. So the idea of the Wonder House is simply to provide affordable housing to everyone. Thank you.